Good evening, everyone. My name is Rabbi Daniel Isaacson, and I welcome you to this year's Yom HaShoah Reading of the Names ceremony. As the rabbi at Jewish Family and Children's Services, I extend our gratitude to all of the Bay Area community leaders who are participating in this year's ceremony, reading these names of loved ones and family members of Bay Area residents who perished in the Holocaust. As a community, it is crucial that we come together every year at this time to remember those who died and to sanctify their memory by recalling their names and reciting Mourner's Kaddish. We'll be reading these names today from 5 to 7, repeating Mourner's Kaddish periodically throughout this time. You are invited to contribute to this list of names. If you have family you wish to remember, you can add them to this list. We will read their names today toward the end of this ceremony, and they will stay on this list in perpetuity. To do this, please go ahead and add their names in the comments section on Facebook Live or YouTube. We also invite you to join us after the reading of the names ceremony for our Yom HaShoah commemoration, which begins at 7 p.m. Pacific Time. And now, the reading of the names.
גליקשטיין אבלס, דלה אבלס, אתורה אבנהיים, מלכה אברהם, שמחה אברהם, עדה אברמוביץ', ג'ייקוב אברמוביץ', ג'וסף אברמוביץ', מוזס אברמוביץ', רייצ'ל אברמוביץ', ריבה אברמוביץ', שרה אברמוביץ', פיליפ אברמוביץ', אנה אברמוביץ', חנה and Getzel Abtzek and their 7 children, Esther Abtzek, her husband, and their 7 children. Anna Adamkevich, William Adamson, Ruth Adamson, Fanny Adelsky, Lotte Edelson, Nandor Adler, אסתר אקרמן, אהרון אלבסן, דוד אלבסן, אמילי אלבסן, אורו אלבסן, סמואל אלבסן, שאול אלבסן, הנרי אלברס, דוד אלסטר, שי אלסטר, בן אלטמן, wife and infant child, ברל בן יוסף אמינוב, סימון בן ברל אמינוף, אברום בן יוסף אמינוף and family, סופה אנצ'יפולובסקי, זלטה אנצ'יפולובסקי, פלה אניסמן, סימון אניסמן, members of the Argerber family, דוד אטלס, הינדה אטלס, מוזצק אורבך, פול אורבך, סנדור אורבך, אברהם אוסלנדר and his family, יאן בסיק, נטלי בקסבסקי, גיטה בייגלמן, דוד בייגלמן, ריבה בייגלמן, הנרי בייגלמן, אברהם בייגלמן, צ'ק בייגלמן, members of the Beigelman family. Esther Baravik, members of the Barbara Goldman and Rothschild family. Paula Barber, Solomon Barber, David Barber, Joseph Barber, Esther Rabinovich Barenboim, Avraham Baruch, Asher Basser, Feigel Basser, Isaac Basser, Israel Basser, Malka Basser, Simcha Basser, Edward Baum, Selma Baum, Flora Beiser Dofer, Chaya Becker, Hershele Becker, Jacob Joshua Becker, Moshe Yechiel Becker, Sarah Becker, Eva Bim, Avraham Bim, Rhoda Bates, Jacob Becker, Malka Becker, Hedwig and Paul Bendix and their daughter, Moses Benes, Alla Bertitsevsky, Anna Bertitsevsky, Yaakov Bertitsevsky, Yevgenia Bertitsevsky, Aaron Bernstein, Doba Bernstein, Etil Diamant Bernstein, Lucia Bernstein, Meir Bernstein, Michael Bernstein, Moshe Bernstein, Riva Bernstein, Rivka Bernstein, Sofa Bernstein, Zlata Bernstein, Dina Beretz, Ernest D. Beretz, Fritz Beretz, Helene Beretz, Johanna Beretz, Karl Beretz, Lena Beretz, Mariana S. Beretz, Paul Beretz, Rose C. Berger, Henry Berger, Mihaly Berger, Robert Bergman, Bella Berkes, Berta Klein Berkes, Belia Berkes, Beryl Berkowski, Cora Berliner, Anna Berman and her family, Mikolos Bernat, Joseph Bernat, Zoltan Bernat, Marie Bernheim, Ethel Bernheim, Nathan Bernstein. Members of the Bezrodini family. Bella Schonherz Begelstein. Shlomo Begelstein. Rachel Begelstein. Meir Avraham Begelstein. Helene Benstock. Isaac Benstock. Zisla Naiman Benstock. Paula Biram. Avraham Bitman. Leib Bitman. Yosel Bitman. Berek Ben Blachman. Esther Altman Blachman. Cantor Julius Yehuda Ben Israel Blackman. Chil Yaakov Blatcher. Estera Blatcher. Hela Blatcher. Pesla Goldfing Blatcher. Samsia Blatcher. Chaya Blatcher. Shlomo Blatcher. Isaac Blatcher. Idessa Blatcher. Brahindla Fraser Blatcher.
Chil Yaakov Bleicher. Pesla Goldfriend Bleicher. Estera Sifra Bleicher Ackerman. Anne Blanker. Max Blanker. Mendel Blattman. Laura Le Blau and her daughter-in-law. Donia Bleich. Dora Bleich. Friedrich Krautheimer Bleich. Isu Bleich. Margalit Bleich. Yitzhak Bleich. Faye Marchelis Bleicher. Paul Bleicher. Berend Blick. Millie Blick. Alois Bloch. Minna Bloch. Peter Bloch. Victor Bloch. Rosita Bloch. Regina Bloch. Ted Blum. Arnold Blum. Regina Blum. Members of the Blum family. Laja Judas Blumenkrantz. Moisha Blumenkrantz. Nathan Blumenthal. Rosa Blumenthal. Moshe Bogomolny. Peril Bogomolny. Fage Bolenstein. Fega Borenstein. Gershon Borenstein. Moshe Borenstein. Gasia Borenstein. Monique Borenstein. Members of the Borschenker family. Pola Borokowski. Isidore Borokowski. Rywa Borokowski. Albert Brand. Isaac Brand. Sabina Brand. Sarah Brand. Emil Brandis. Roman Braunfeld. Members of the Braverman family. Amalia Brewer. Ferenc Brewer. Gisa Brewer. Miklos Brewer. Nettie Brewer. Anna Brick. Hugo Brick. Mathilda Brick. Rudolph Brick. Meyer Buchheim. Paula Buchheim. Members of the Busen family. Bella Bick. Ben Zion Bick. Clara Bick. Sonia Bick. Nachman Bick. Barbara Canelos. Ronald Cape. Albertina Casuto. Anina Casuto. Rabbi Nathan Casuto. Ugo Casuto. Elena Castelli. Enrico Castelli. Julio Cesare Castelli. Guido Castelli. Laura Castelli. Olga Castelli. Nella Castigliani. Sonia Korn Katravas Grimani. Members of the Sisana family. Menachem Chabelak. Frida Chabelak. Getzel Chabelak. Pesabela Chabelak. Feivel Chabelak. Amelia Chambre. Anne-Marie Chambre, Max Chambre, Alexandra Cohen, Elizabeth Cohen, Ellie Paulette Cohen, Hans Cohen, Ilona Cohen, Joseph Cohen, Joseph Jopi Samuel Cohen, Solomon Cohen, Ann Cohen, Sarah Cohen Bozeman, members of the community of Jedwabne, Poland, members of the community of Zlochiv, Ukraine, Devorah Cooperman, Hannah Tissenbaum, Carol Tissenbaum, Manya Tissenbaum, Shlomo Sintz, Rosa Chop, Hannah Chuckerman, Avraham Chuckerman, Floyd Dade, Alter Damenstein, Brendla Damenstein, Rosa Damenstein, Abraham Danowitz, Sarah Danowitz, Batya Lozansky Danzig, Ben Sion Danzig, Avraham Danzig, Leon Dowman, Julius David, Linda David, Rachel David, Simcha David, members of the David family, Helen Davis, Emmanuel de Groot, Hannah Lever de Groot, Hartog de Groot, Israel de Groot, Yitzhak de Groot, Judith de Groot, Levi de Groot, Mayor de Groot, Mina Simmons de Groot, Moses de Groot, Rachel de Groot, Rosa Vrij de Groot, Salomon de Groot, Etel Dimont, Shula Dimont, Yosel Dimont, Aaron Dobrecher, Beryl Dobrecher, Gaba Dobrecher, Esther Dobrecher, Grecia Dobrecher, Erin Dobzinska, Avram Dobzinska, Haya Dobzinska, Miriam Dobzinska, members of the Dorfman family, Anshel Drodler.
Bela Dradler, Elokim Dradler, Jenya Dradler, Tauba Dradler, Ari Leib Drevno, Liba Drevno, Ahuva Drevno, Esther Okon Drevno, Shandor Drevno, Yitzhak Drevno, Maya Jutka Drevno, Hertha Drimmer, Max Drimmer, Ruvin Drushak, Tauba Drushak, Chaya Drushak, Ishika Drushak, Israel Drushak, Beile Dabiner, Elezir Dabiner, Herschel Dabiner, Moishe Dabiner, Sore Mekla Dabiner, Pesach Dubovi, Nathan Dubovi, Pesha Dubovi, Shendel Dubovi, Eli Dubovi, Mendel Dubovi, Jakob Dubovi, Moishe Dubovi, Esther During, Leo During, Erno Eckstein, Hermann Eckstein, Leni Schwarz-Eckstein, Salomon Eckstein, Elsa Eckstein, Rosa Eckstein, Dora Edelstein, Leon Edelstein, Moishe Edelstein, Ruven Edelstein, Reuser Edelstein, Janke Edelstein, Kaya Eidliner, Mita Eisner, Emma Eckstein, Lazare Elias, Eva Charlotte Elias, Gertrude Elias, Leo Elias, Elisabeth Boischi Engel, Erich Engel, Georg Engel, Oskar Engel, Katharina Engel, Bascha Enismann, Samuel Enismann, Faika Eppelbaum, Bertha Epstein, Gesa Ernster, Helene Ernster Klaus, Gesa Fabri, Laura Farkas, Icek Phasenfest, Maria Phasenfest, Moische Samen Phasenfest, Kalman Fass, Kila Fass, Walter Fass, Israel Bear Feder, Rai Feder, members of the Feder family, Davora Federmann, Raphael Federmann, Betty Federmann, Rubin Federmann, Sarah Feig, Nathan Fritz Feig, Rabbi Dr. Gershom Feinberg, Scholtan Foldisch Feldmann, Joshua Fellenbaum, Esther Fellenbaum, Sarah Fellenbaum, Itzhak Fellenbaum, Albert Feller, Anita Feller, Hermann Feller, Martha Feller, Binia Pferdmann, Itzhak Pferdmann, Mischla Pferdmann, Pessa Pferdmann, Jonkle Pferdmann, Markus Feuer, Mimi Feuerstein, Esteva Rabinovich Feigenbaum, Deborah Findelstein, her husband and 6 children, Wolf David Findling, Edla Gottesdiener, Laura Finkel, Gertrude Fischel, Josef Fischer, Lilly Fischer, Betty Fischer, Lotti Fischmann, Schifra Fischmann, Henoch Fissenfeld, Josef Fissenfeld, Shura Fissenfeld Jimek, Anna Flesch, Fedor Flesch, Hugo Flesch, Ljerka Flesch, Lubomir Flesch, Galo Aguilar Flores, Beatriz Gomez Martinez Flores, Ari Vogel, Lea Vogel, Luisa Vogel, Arpad Frank, Michael Frank, Hermann Frank, Pauline Frank, Robert Frank, Laszlo Frankovic, Giti Friedman, Eli Friedman, Ella Freund, George Freund, Ida Fried, Anschel Fried, Tovia Fried, Abraham Friedman, Aaron Friedman, Baruch Friedman, Beiler Friedman, Berisch Sedfinger Friedman, Hanna Sedfinger Friedman, Chaya Friedman, Chaya Sima Friedman, Shemi Friedman, David Friedman, Dvora Friedman, Eliyahu Friedman, Esther Friedman, Feiga Friedman, Hanoch Friedman, Henya Friedman, Herschklo Friedman, Itche Friedman.
Itzhak Friedman, Jacob Friedman, Joseph Friedman, Kilia Friedman, Leibush Freeman, Leah Friedman, Malka Friedman, Mechla Friedman, Menachem Friedman, Menashe Friedman, Monik Friedman, Mordechai Friedman, Nachemia Friedman, Perla Friedman, Raya Friedman, Reitzel Friedman, Rivka Friedman, Rosa Friedman, Salman Friedman, Shlomo Ber Friedman, Shul Akiva Friedman, Sima Friedman, Toby Friedman, Yankel Friedman, Yitzchak Friedman, Yosel Freeman, Zalman Friedman, Mark Friedman, Teresa Friedman, Pauline Frummel, Lee Frummel, Alta Friedman, Avram Harsh Friedman, Bela Friedman, Brima Friedman, Chaya Rhonda Miller Friedman, Devorah Friedman, Elazar Yaakov Friedman, Getzel Friedman, Golda Bella Friedman, Jack Friedman, Kalman Itchel Friedman, Leah Miller Friedman, Leibish Friedman, Moshela Friedman, Mordechai Yosef Friedman, Pesia Friedman, Wolf Friedman, Yidis Friedman, Yoel Friedman, Yosel Friedman, Daniel Fuchs, Goldie Fuchs, Miriam Fuchs, Moshe Fuchs, Samuel Fuchs, Tybal Fuchs, Frida Fuchs, Blima Fudalowitz, Lieb Fudalowitz, Max Fold, Andor Gach, Janos Gach, Kato Gach, Marika Gach, Alred Gertner, Eugen Gertner, Justine Gertner, Willie Gertner, Richard Gertner, Francis Gage, Henry Gage, Erica Gage, Miriam Galai, Yehiel Galai, Rochelle Leah Garfinkel, Abraham Gestalter, Esther Gestalter, Fania Gestalter, Frida Gestalter, Henia Gestalter, Hirsch Gestalter, Jacob Gestalter, Merci Gestalter, Scheindel Gestalter, Emmanuel Gelbart, Raquela Lissner Gelbart, Hirsch Isser Gelender, Frida Gelender, members of the Gelender family, Feigl Gelfand, Lieb Gelfand, Sarah Gelfand, Yankel Gelfand, Yosel Gelfand, Agi Geller, Robert Geminder, Attilio Gentili, David Gentili, Enriqueta Gentili, Giacomo Gentili, Giudita Gentili, Vittorio Gentili, Nasanel Gerbich, Julika Gergely, Minna Gerson, Etel Gerstein, Hinda Gerstein, Lieb Gerstein, Nechama Gerstein, Samuel Gerstein, Barella Gertzig, Herta Gunther, Feigela Gavush, Benjamin Gavush, Marek Gavush, members of the Gingier family, members of the Gingier family of Konski, Poland, Adela Ginsburg, Paula and Eli Ginsburg and their children Estrusha and Lubcha, Herschel Gitlin and family, Chaim Lieb Gitlin and family, Anna Glazer, Papa Glazer, Elsa Glazer, Azriel Moisha Yitzchak Meyer Glatt, Sprinza Chaya Glatt, Leo Glazer, Rose Glazer, Samuel Glazer, Minna Glazer, Sevek Glazer, Vanya Glazer, Mordechai Glazer, Jacob Glazer and family, Paula Glazer Lander, Sylvia Glickstein, Libby Glicksman, George Glicksman, Meyer Shimon Glochen, Jacob Goldberg, Leon Goldberg, Zelda Goldberg, Herman Goldberg, Caroline Goldberg, members of the Goldbreut family, Abram Goldfarb, Berek Goldfarb, Hinda Fislowitz Goldfarb, Motzek Aaron Goldfarb, Alfred Goldfish, Frida Goldfish, Lena Goldfish.
Mayor Goldfish, Staya Goldkorn, Barbara and Branka Goldman, Katie Goldschmidt, Alfred Goldstein, Edita Goldstein, Chaim Ber Goldstein, Yosef Goldstern, Per Garfinkel Goldstern, Tzvi Goldstern, Adel Goldstern, Golda Goldstern, Sam Goldwasser, Ansel Golod, Esther Golubchik, Fagel Golubchik, Lazar Golubchik, Yechiel Golubchik, Pinchas Golubchik, Pesha Meker Golubchik, Adla Gordon, Yisrael Gordon, members of the Gorobitz family, Celia Gottlieb, David Gottlieb, Henry Gottlieb, Manya Gottlieb, Sophie Godtstelner, Frederick Godtstelner, Hulda Gothiner, Max Gothiner, Rita Gothiner, Wilhelm Gothiner, Josef Gradenwitz, Erna Schonberg Gradenwitz, Erna Gradenwitz, Benita Grandi, Moshe Greenbaum, Rivka Greener, Leza Greener, Hessel Greener, Raya Greener, Feivel Greener, Rivka Greener, Leza Greener, Fanny Grossman, Bella Gross, Benjamin Bella Gross, Jenna Gross, Paul Gross, Hiroshka Gross, Lulu Grunberg, Bianya Gruman, Devora Gruman, Michla Gruman, Pavel Gruman, Yossel Gruman, members of the Grunberger family, Ida Grunfeld, Adolf Grushka, Leah Grin, Shoshana Grin, Basha Grin, Brunya Grin, Abba Grinsek, Nechama Grinsmek, Yosela Grismek, Hessa Gumplowitz, Lena Hoffman Gumprich, Gustav Gumprich, Asya Gorwitz, Yedidya Gorvich, Lazar Gorvich, Sima Gorvich, Cyril Gorvich, Tauba Gorvich, Shaya Gorvich, Herta Gut, Sora Gutman, Toby Gutman, Morris Gutman, Jan Gutman, Judith Gutman, Aaron Gutman, Eleonora Laura Gutman, Aranka Haber, Vilmos Haber, Tommy Haber, Martha Hegelberg, Ernest Hahn, Henny Hahn, Herbert Hahn, Monica Hahn, Sophie Hahn, Rabbi Yecheskel Shraga, Halberstam, Chayesara, Halberstam, Chaim, Halberstam, Zipporta Clara Halberstam, Shmuel Halberstam, David Halberstam, Rivka Halpern, George Hamburger, Hanna Hamburska, Linda Happ, Joseph Hasid, Barna Havas, Pinchas Hecht, Bendix Helbron, Albert Heim, Louise Heim, Rosa Heim, Schnee Heinz, Katika Heisler, Heinz Heller, Karl Heller, Shmuel Hellman, Lily Henoch, Mindy Herrick, Shlomo Hirschhorn, Shlomo Hez, Walter Hessler, Mr. Hirschberger, Julius Hirschberger, Sabine Hirschberger, Hugo Hirschberger and his family, Hedwig Hirschman, members of the Hirschberg family of Tomaszów Mazowiecki, Poland, Esther Hoffman, Lotta Hoffman, Solomon Hoffman, Martha Hoffman, Pinchas Hoffner, Yita Hoffner, Leah Hoffner, Yisrael Hoffner, Razel Hoffner, Rivka Hoffner, Gino Hollander, Helen Gelb Hollander, Henasso Hollander.
Good evening. My name is Rabbi Daniel Isaacson, and I welcome you to this year's annual Yom HaShoah Reading of the Names ceremony. As the Rabbi at Jewish Family and Children's Services, I extend our gratitude to all of our Bay Area community leaders who are participating in this year's ceremony, reading these names of loved ones and family members of Bay Area residents who perished in the Holocaust. We will be reading these names today on a continuous cycle from 5 to 7, reciting Mourner's Kaddish periodically throughout this time. If you have family you wish to remember, you can add them to this list. We will read their names today toward the end of this name reading ceremony, and they will stay on our list in perpetuity. To do this, please add their names in the comments area on Facebook Live or YouTube. We also invite you to join us after the reading of the names ceremony for our annual Yom HaShoah Commemoration, which begins at 7 p.m. Pacific Time. And now we continue with the recitation of Mourner's Kaddish.
Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabba, v'yamad yivrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dekol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kariv, v'imru Amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mivarach, le'alam ololmei olmaya. Yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitramam, v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitale, v'yitalal, Shmei D'Kudsha Brechu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da amiran b'yama, v'imru Amen. Osei shalom b'romav, ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ya kol Israel, v'imru Amen.
Joseph Hollander, Lajos Hollander, Samuel Hollander, Victor Hollander, Gisela Hollander, her husband and daughter, Hermine Halsbauer, Meyer Homler, Leah Homler, Rivka Homler, Edward Horn, Lutz Horn, Pauline Windmuller Horn, Manya Huber and her family, members of the Hulak family of Konski, Poland, Adolf Itkevitz, Clara Itkevitz, Jeanne Ilch, members of the Indich family, Julie Isaac, Bertha Jacobson Baruch, Elmer Edwin Jacobson, Cantor Hein Aaron Jacobson, Hannah Liebsman Jacobson, Rudolph Jaffe, Dina Jacobvitz, Fedor Jacobvitz, Mike Jacobvitz, Benjamin Jacobson, Felicia Jacobson, Mendel Jacobson, Shmuel Jacobson, Allegri Gerasi, Daisy Gerasi, Chaim Gerasi, Miriam Gerasi, Mary Gerasi, Yetta Judas, David Judd, Paula Judd, Balkel Jurkovitz, Chieska Yurkowicz, Haya Yurkowicz, Lifka Yurkowicz, Rivka Leah Yurkowicz, Yosik Yurkowicz, Esther Sora Yurkowicz, Yosko Lazar Yurkowicz, Shana Freda Yurkowicz, Chana Kasu, Zachariah Kasu, Adele Kelber, David Kahan, Leah Kahan, Esther Cahan, Adele Kalber, Solomon Kalber, Lahos Caldi, Clara Caldi, Mindel and Falvel Kalish, their children and members of their extended family, Max Kulker, Leah Kammer, Rachel Kane, Rachmel Kane, Hanaya Kaplinsky, Eli Kaplinsky, Solomon Karkmer, Philip Carlin, Ruth M. Carlin, Alfred M. Carlin, Yitzhak Fischel Karschenbaum, Velvel Chaim Karschenbaum, Nacha Karschenbaum, Aria Karschenbaum, Naska Karschenbaum, Asna Karschenbaum, Shifra Karschenbaum, Benjamin Katz, Hans Katz, Leah Katz, Pesach Katz, Sarah Katz, Shimon Katz, Sima Katz, Gabriel Katz, Rachel Katz, Shalom Katz, 6 members of the Katz family of Ivye, Poland, Arthur Kaufman, Rosa Kaufman, Walter Kaufman, Rosette Kaiser, Jack Kaiser, Regina Bon Kaiser, Jerome Kent, Alader Karenyi, Marika Karenyi, Rojazinka Karenyi, Emil Kirschberg, members of the Kirskire family, Marcia Kuetnizitz, Peretz Kuetnizitz, Ruchel Kuetnizitz, Vela Kuetnizitz, Blima and Zalki Kleinmans and their children Gucha, Anja, Binu, and Chaim, Zelig Kleinberg, Mina Kleiner, Julian Kleiner, Marila Kleinert, Raina Kleinert, Roman Kleinert, Adolf Kleinert, Leon Klein Handler, Gila Klein Handler, Kalma Klein Handler, Frida Kleinlehrer, Michał Kleinlehrer, Itzke Kliot, Heike Kliot, Mary Clearhandler, Carla Knoller, Esther Koch Kahan, Berta Kochman, Emil Kochman, Libish Konigstein, Rivka Konigstein, Felix Konigstein, Joseph Kaufler, Ilda Kaufler, Jacob Kohn, Fela Kohn, Franz Kohler, Eli Konar. May their memories be a blessing.
Penina Konar, Martha Cocker Konishin, Sosman Konishin, Julie Konishin Prinz, members of the Kopecki family, Sender Korkowski, Gidel Korkowski, Eva Hava Korn, Jacob Korn, Pinchas Korn, Sarah Korn, members of the Korn family, Hannah Kornbluth, Gertrude Kornbluth, Lucia Kornbrot, Mayor Kornbrot, Peter Kornfeld, Erwin Kovid, Carol Kovid, Jezek Kozminska, Renia Kozminska, Fritz Kramer, Gusti Kram, Sigmund Kram, Siegfried Kram, Baruch Kronkberg, Hanna Kronkberg, Fanika Kraus, Tonka Kraus, members of the Krebs family, Ben Kreitzman, Chaim Kreitzman, Lieb Kreitzman, Peppy Kreitzman, Anna Krell, Alfred Krell, Paula Kriken, Mirka Nowicki Krimlowitz, Mr. Krimlowitz, Ida Kronberger, Walter Kronberger, Gabriella Crew, Isidore Crew, Herman Crew, Olga Crew, Isidore Crew, Gothi Crew, Eva Crew, Livia Crew, Zusi Crew, Akos Crew, Irvin and Gabriella Crew and their 3 daughters, Rosa Kreis, Meyer Kreis, Figa Kuflik, Moses Kuflik, Herschel Kumpiansky, Anna Kupfer, Siegfried Kupfer, Brotzia Kupferschmidt, Leon Kupferschmidt, Goldie Kupferwasser, Sarah Kupferwasser, Selma Kupferwasser, members of the Kupferwasser family, Abraham Current, Hannah Current, David Current, Gita Leah Current, Ichia Current, Miriam Current, Abraham and Shella Current and their 4 children, Haya Kurlansky, Pinkas Kurlansky, Paula Kurtzman, Manis Kuten, Moshe Aaron Kuten, Etta Bas Ox Kuten, Ruchel Kuten, Zlota Kuten, Luba Leitman, Elizabeth Luxer, Leonia Landau, Paula Lander, Beja Langer, Gitti Langer, Ernst Lingfelder, Lily Lingfelder Grandi, Anne Laufer, Adolf Lazar, Holan Lazar, Helen Lazar, Yeno Lazar, Anna Leba, Paul Leba, Judith Leba, Eva Lehman, Gertrude Lehman, Yoav Lieb, Yocheved Lieb, Akiba Lieb, Yoel Lieb, Crandall Lieb, Hannah Lieb, Devorah Leibel, Gittel Leibel, Jonathan Leibel, Leah Leibel, Manny Leibel, Pea Leibel, Peretz Leibel, Sarah Leibel, Shmuel Leibel, Franz Lindorfer, Gustav Lindorfer, Abram Lemkin, Sarah Lemkin, Bertha Lempert, Joseph Lempert, Bernhard Israel Lempert, Erica Lempert, Chaim Lempert, Freddie Malka Lempert, Florine B. Lerner, members of the Lerner family, Adriana Castelli Levy, Aldo Levy, Julio Levy, Olga Heyman Levian.
Hinda Levine, Sabelia Levine, Rosa Levine, Levinsons, Bassa Levinsons, Bernard Levinsons, Ida Levinsons, Samuel Levinsons, Helga Levi, Richard Levi, Selma Levi, Manfred Lewandowski, Julius Levin, Margaret Levinek, Maxi Levinek, Anna Levitt, Abraham Levitt, Karol Libicki, Chaim Zvi, Liechtenstein, Hinda Liechtenstein, Asher Liechtenstein, Malka Dostal Liechtenstein, Moses Liechtenstein, Nadine Lieberman's parents and brother, Haske Lipkin, Rosa Libnowska, Abram Ber Lipschitz, Chaya Iska Lipschitz, Sipora Chaya Lipschitz, Esther Tamara Lipschitz, Miriam Sura Lipschitz, Rabbi Yochanan Lipschitz, Rivka Bayela Lipschitz, Janka Lipschitz, Elizabeth Lustig Love, Paula Lover, Jetzchen Lovenstein, Friedrich Lovenstein, Karl Lovenstein, Priska Lamova, Shmuel Lomsky, Esther Lomsky, Heniek Lomsky, Tosha Lomsky, Hela Lomsky, Tibor Lovenstein, Williams J. Lovenberg, Friedrich Lowry, Nechama Lozansky, Baruch Lozansky, members of the Lubel family, Egon Lustig, Eugene Lustig, Thomas Lustig, Alfred Lustig, Lili Lustig, Marianne Lustig, Theodor Lustig, Alice Lustig Bernard, Laszlo Lustig, Sarah Lustig, Tibor Lustig, Gloria Leon, Annie Maber, Beryl Maber, Chaim Maber, Devorah Maber, Lazar Maber, Manya Maber, Beryl Maber, Rachel Maber, Sarah Maber, Shmuel Maber, Yitzhak Maber, Abraham Macherovsky, Aaron Magenheim, Baila Magenheim, Berl Magenheim, Hannah Magenheim, Mina Magenheim, Yosef Magenheim, Golda Magen, Joseph Magen, Maria Magen, Moshe Magen, Yidel Zalman. Regina Kirsch Magnus, Leon Las Magnus, René Magnus, Francis Andrew Meyer, Franta Meyer, members of the Meyer family of Brno, Czechoslovakia, members of the Meisler family, Branda Peritzer Maitilis, Chai Maitilis, Eliezer Maitilis, Shlomo Maitilis, Eliezer Maitlis, Shlomo Maitlis, Idessa Sarah Maitlis, Branchta Maitlis Ne Paiser, Sru Malmed, Hannah Malmed, Joseph Malmed, Charles Malmed, Golda Mandelbaum, Solomon Mandelbaum, Mendel Mandelbaum, Hugo Mann, Rosa Mann, Julius Mansbach, Adolf Markovici, Shimchihu Markovici, Sophia Schwarz-Markovici, Hedwig Marek, Ernest Mark, Alice Mark, Mark Markovich, René Markovich, Lola Martinez, Erich Marx, Phyllis Matson, Hoda Mazalova, Gilbert Mazuz, Johanna Kosover-Medag, Sindel Mechman, Abraham McKay, Emmerich Menzer, Robert Hillel Menzer.
Albert Mendel, Anna Mendel, Margot Mendel, Izzy Mendrowski, Max Menzel, Hedwig Metzger, Anthony Mayer, Gerda Mayer, Erica Mayer, Albert Mayer, Lena Mayer, Daniel Mayer, Paulina Mayer, Lottie Mayer. Members of the Michaelis family: Hanna Mikulvich, Mordechai Mikulvich, Louis Midvinsky, Emma Midvinsky, Jagda Matlis Mikauer, Matis Mises, Avraham Mikkelsen, Charna Mikkelsen, Chasha Mikkelsen, Fischel Mikkelsen, Malka Mikkelsen, Nacha Mikkelsen, Nathan Mikkelsen, Pearl Mikkelsen, Rosa Mikkelsen, Sarah Mikkelsen, Shimon Mikkelsen, Leah Mikowski, Kayla Mikowski, Itka Betel Mikowski, Arusha Mikowski, Joseph Milk, Lipcia Milk, Malcha Reisa Milk, Mina Milk, Razia Milk, Jacob Miller. 226 members of the Miller family: Beryl Milstein, Esther Milstein, Herman Milstein, Semil Milstein, Aaron Milstein, Matis Mises, Leah Mittelman, Moritz Mittelman, Louis Mivinsky, Emma Mivinsky, Matilda Moller, Fego Appelblatt Monat, Yehoshua Monat, Shimon Monat, Lucina Monat, Flora Moose, Sucher Beresh Mordovich, Mirel Mordovich, Clemmy Mosbacher, Hugo Mosbacher, Dora Moskowitz, Emi Moskowitz, Ellie Mullerheim, Kurt Mullerheim, Robert Mullerheim, Avram Murovich, Yankel Murovich, Zygmunt Nagel, Joseph Nagel, Ethel Nagel, Felix Nussbaum, Ita Nyman, Jacob Nyman, Mendel Nyman, Yaakov Nyman, Berta Nyman, Ben Nyman, Chaim Nemzer, Semil Nestel, Tauba Nestel, Anna Neuberger, Sarah Neufeld, Margit Newman, Alexander Newman, Seymour Neustadt, Ruas Neyman, Mendel Neyman. Members of the Nissenbaum family: Bluma Nittenberg, Esther Nittenberg, Faisiel Nittenberg, Leon Nittenberg, Rachel Nittenberg, Rachela Nittenberg, Sarah Nittenberg, Saradora Nittenberg, Liebisch Nittenberg and family. The many thousands of forgotten victims from the North African countries of Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, and Morocco. Rudolf Novak, Albert knows, Alexander knows, Eleonora knows, Sasha Zussman knows, Sigmund Oberlander, Rika Oberlander, Gertie Oberlander, Mordechai Okon, Freda Ox, David Oniski, Jeanette Oppenheimer, Aaron Orbach, Joseph Orban, David Orner, Henry Oster, Rabino Riccardo Pacifici, Vanda Abenaim Pacifici, Erica Rohr Falza Paget, Ted Pais, Sarah Pais, Label Pais, Jacob Pais, Ida Traeger Pais, Jeanette Pave, Henry Pave, Christine Pave, Yidis Pesikovitz.
Good evening. My name is Rabbi Daniel Isaacson, and I welcome you to this year's annual Yom HaShoah Reading of the Names ceremony. As the Rabbi at Jewish Family and Children's Services, I extend our gratitude to all of our Bay Area community leaders who are participating in this year's ceremony, reading these names of loved ones and family members of Bay Area residents who perished in the Holocaust. We will be reading these names today on a continuous cycle from 5 to 7, reciting Mourner's Kaddish periodically throughout this time. If you have family you wish to remember, you can add them to this list. We will read their names today toward the end of this name reading ceremony, and they will stay on our list in perpetuity. To do this, please add their names in the comments area on Facebook Live or YouTube. We also invite you to join us after the reading of the names ceremony for our annual Yom HaShoah Commemoration, which begins at 7 p.m. Pacific Time. And now we continue with the recitation of Mourner's Kaddish.
Yikadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Ve'alma divra hirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael v'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei d'kudsha barichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav u'yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru Amen.
David Pelta, Gitto Pelta, Ignacy Pelta, Isaac Pelta, Israel Pelta, Leah Pelta, Malcha Pelta, Manya Pelta, Nusin Pelta, Rivka Pelta, members of the Pelta family of Amsterdam, Netherlands, members of the Pelta family of Poland, Celia Pearl, Julius Pearl, Renate Pearl, Sabina Pearl Roth, Sarah Pearl Roth, David Alfred Pearl Roth, Mono Pearl Roth, Maurice Perchuk, Mimi Pershel, Otto Pick, members of the Pick family of Konski, Poland, Lebish and Sarah Pinchofi and 4 of their children, Livchia Petrovsky, Hendel Pitorskova, Ides Pitorskova, Pesa Pitorskova, Nusan Pitorskova, Yochevet Pitorskova, Baruch Pitorskova, Yukul Pitorskava, Otto Pisk, Gisela Pisk, Jenny Pisk, Alfred Pisk, members of the Platt family, Daniel Porkrosava, Anya Porkrosava, Golocha Porkrosava, Ruth Polak, Jack Polak, Penny Polak, Sarah Polak, Noah Pomerantz, Rose Pomerantz, Vivoval Pomerantz, Ben Pomerantz's first wife and son, Vizelov Popper, Edith Sonia Popper, Rachilia Portman, Froem Portman, Bella Portman, Ernestine Schick Posamenter, Heinrich Posamenter, Malka Prager, Israel Prager and his wife and their 4 daughters, Simon Preisler, Ludwig Primak, Meir Primak, Yitzchak Neil Prunes, members of the Pisturki family, Eti Puldos, Ida Robinovich, Mendel Robinovich, Ephraim Robinovich, Sigmund Rader, Idel Rader, Harry Rekov, Rachel Lesevich Reichnitz, Rabbi Jack Reimert, Helen Reiner, Rose Reiner, Carl Reiner, Hershey Reinich, Milicia Reiniger, Shai Reiniger, Yaakov Reiniger, Zelda Reiniger, Nadan Rice, Tony Rice, Sarah Rise, Max Rise, Arpad Rise, Isidore Rise, Rachel Riza Gettelson, Sarah Riedek, her husband, and their 6 children. Esther Ring, Helena Ring, Leo Ring, Blimka Reisenberg, Melanie Ribokava, Dusi Robichik, Leslie Robichik, Frida Reuter, Schindel Rofel, Ruti Rofel, members of the Rogoff family, Anna Romberg, Ella Romberg, Oscar Romberg, Siegfried Romberg, Walter Romberg, William Romberg, Paula Rona, Emmanuel Rona, Bertha Rosen, Regina Rosen, Anna Rosen, Bernard Rosen, members of the Rosen family, Erwin Rosenbach, Jenny Rosenbaum, Albert Rosenberg, Lily Rosenberg, Mitzi Rosenberg, Moshe Kalman Rosenberg, Belima Rosenberg, Esther Rosenberg, Lola Rosenberg, Chaim Rosenberg, Elizabeth Rosenberg, Glimka Rosenberg, Herman Rosenberg, Beluma Rosenberg, Emil Rosenberg, Feigja Rosenblatt, Israel Rosenblatt, Ruchama Rosenblatt.
Tibi Rosensamen, Violetta Rosensamen, Jerry Rosenstein, George Rosenstock, members of the Rosenthal family of Berlin, Rachel Rosenwasser, Simon Rosenwasser, Lise Lotte Wolf Rosianski, Joseph Rosianski, Marta Rosianski, Zev Rosianski, Morris Rosnoff, Sarah Rosnov, Kian Mikkel Rosnov, Hanna Rashka Rosnov, Joseph Markus Roth. Members of the Rosenwarf family of Kronskie, Poland. Rikva Rosenstein, Kana Rosenstein, Kaya Rosenstein, Pesach Rosenstein, Yaakov Yehuda Rosenstein, Moshe Eliyahu Rosenstein, Juden Rosenstein, Bevix Dov Rosenstein, Israel Rosenstein, Nehemiah Rosenstein. Members of the Rub family. Rosie Rubenstein, Lea Ruberman, Rivka Ruberman, Shimshon Ruberman, Yaakov Ruberman, Helen Rubin, Ivy Rubin, Irving Rubin, Tun Rubin, Leo Rubinov, Miriam Oldak Rubinov, Israel Rubinstein, Rivka Rubinstein, Mendel Rubinstein, Barbara Bronca Goldman Ruhim. Members of the Ruderman family of Radoszkowice, Poland. Selma Hoffman Rustad, Siegfried Rustad, Ephraim Risover, Esther Risover, Asir Safrai, Fania Safrai, Raisa Safrai, Israel Moshe Saidovitz, Mirel Saidovitz, Caroline Salomon, Marianne Salomon, Richard Salomon, Sigmund Salomon. Members of the Salzman family. Cecilia Samuel, Ernest Samuel, Hedwig Samuel, Margaret Samuel, Miri Samuel, Solomon Samuel, Eugiv Samuel, Berta Sandelovski, Luba Maria Sapetkin, Solomon Sapetkin, Felicia Sattler, Michael Sattler, Samuel Sattler, Aaron Savitsky, Golda Pelta Savitsky, Isaac Savitsky, Mordecai Savitsky, Eva Shenchelsky, Malva Shalek, Malvina Shalek, Selma Schanfer, Zev Miriam Shantz, Samuel Shantz, Jonas Scharf, Marcel Scharf, Chaim Shatner, Jente Shatner, Margaret Shatner, Markus Shatner, Regina Shatner, Siegfried Shatner, Rebecca Schechter, Simcha Schechter, Sidonia Angial Scheiber, Rosa Scheiber, Carol Scheiber, Taub Shainok, Leopold Schellenberg, Clara Schellenberg, Emma Schuer, Hedwig Schick, Naftali Schipper, Selig Schipper, David Schlossberg, Regine Schmitz, Unia Schneider and her family, Rela Schneier, Grete Schnitzer, Trude Schnitzer, Hilde Schnitzer, Annie Schnitzer, Irma Schnitzer, Fritz Schocken, Karl Schönberg, Clara Schönberg, Erna Schönenberg, Baile Schoschmer, Joshua Schoschmer, Salman Schoschmer, Seal Schoschmer, Joseph Schoschmer, David Schoschmer, Moishe Schoschmer, Ethel Schoschmer, Miriam Sean, Selma Rosenthal Schönenberg, Giri Schorsch, Martha Schorsch, Annette Gruman Schulz, Ferenc Schwarz, Tibor Schwarz.
Karoli Schwartz, Leon Schwarzwald, Rosa Schwarzwald, Annie Schwartz, Herman Edwin Schwartz, Sigmund Siegfried Schwartz, Vera Schwartz, Fritz Schwarzbart, Gisela Schwarzbart, Hilda Schwarzbart, Herman Schweitzer, Gilza Schweitzer and her children, Herman Seligman, Abraham Senner, Matilda Senner, Saul Senner, Solomon Septikin, Oscar Sepstrup, Finn Sepstrup, Rivka Sarika, Kaya Okan Scheidovitz, Abraham Shapiro, Beryl Shapiro, Braindell Shapiro, Mania Shapiro, Moshe Shapiro, Rachel Shapiro, Rosa Shapiro, Shaul Shapiro, Zaydal Shapiro, Henry Sharp, Henriette Chartel, Henry Chartel, Tuvi Sharupsky, Miriam Sharupsky, Leah Sharupsky, Friedel Sharupsky, Baruch Shaniz, Avrum Shaniz and his family, Gania Shiel, Misha Shiel, Nayusa Shiel, Soma Shiel, Herschel Shinkovich, Avrumi Shlomovitz, Shanae Shlomovitz, Ephraim Shlomovitz, Etu Shlomovitz, Malchi Shlomovich, Leah Shlomovitz, Mikhail Shlomovich, Chaim Lev Shlomovitz, Bella Shlomovitz, Yahuda Hirsch Shlomovitz, Lev Yitzhak Shlomovitz, Risa Shlomovitz, Yehudit Shlomovitz, Leah Schosman, Douglas Shorenstein, Mikhail Stromberg, Sylvia Siegel, Emil Siegel, Gershon Silberman, Norman Silver, Shay Simkovitz, Mendel Simkovitz, Helena Simon, Herman Simon, Fanny Simon, Hedwig Simon, Willie Simon, Julia Singer, Bella Fox Slomovich, Bernard Slomovich, Beryl Slomovich, Glima Slomovich, Blimka Slomovich, Elliot Slomovich, Joseph Slomovich, Rachel Slomovich, Israel and Shindel Slomovich, Yosef David Slomovich, Zipporah Slomovich, Miriam Slomovich, Yocheved and Kalman Slomovich and their 2 children, Hirschel and Shindela Slomovich and their 5 children, Yona Slomovich, his wife, and their 4 children, Herman Sloss, Jean Greenstein Sloss, Lily Smolowitz, Rahel Smolyanskia, Zuzim Smolansky, Lazar Smolansky, David Shinatkovich, Miriam Shinatkovich, Yoshua Shinatkovich, Simha Shinatkovich, Aaron Shinatkovich, Yosef Shinatkovich, Sarah Shinatkovich, Shimon Shinatkovich, Yoshua Shinatkovich, Boruska Sobol, Fanny Somer, Andre Somaji, Etali Somaji, Magda Somaji, Sam Spice, Esther Marcus Spear, Alfred Spear, L. William Spear, Rosa Spicer, Hannah Spiegel, Rosa Spiegel, Shalom Spiegel, Gisela Spira, members of the Spitz family, members of the Stadler family, Caroline Stein, Rudolf Stein and his family, Ezel Steiner, John Michael Steiner, Bilba Steinweg, Doris Steinweg, Greta Steinweg, Liesel Steinweg, Lotto Steinweg, Louis Steinweg.
Rosa Steinweg, Adolf Steinweg, Sally Steinweg, Wilhelm Steinweg, Frieda Steinweg, Emma Steinweg Kassel, Regan Eckstein Stern, Jochla Velalta Stoller, Henry Strauss, Marguerite Strauss, Elsa Strang, Rosa Sultan Lipnowska, members of the Sussman family, Udit Lever Svab, Joseph Svab, Leon Svab, Meyer Svab, Philip Svab, Sarah Zagarias Svab, Entje Svab Aronson, Sophia Svab de Groot, Metje Svab Vigaveno, Dvora Simkovich, Herschel Simkovich, Mendel Simkovich, Shaya Simkovich, Benjamin Tsabo, Leah Tsabo, Louis Tsabo, Menachem Tsabo, Mendel Tsabo, Barbola Tsats, Aaron Shavinovich, Leah Shavinovich, Luba Shavinovich, Chenia Shvavinovich, Adela Zigeti, Kolomon Zigeti, Mira Zigeti, Vlast Zigeti, Bele Shokerman, Hanania Shokerman, Maishe Eli Shokerman, Peril Shokerman, Reisel Perlmutter Shokerman, Zlate Shokerman, Adela Spira, Leib Spira, Michal Spira, Rakela Spira, Dwora Schwartz, Morris Schwartz, Ignacy Schwartz, Edith Wheeler Tabak, George Tabak, Irene Tabak, Herman Tabak, Rudy Tandler, Tom Tandler, Moishe Tannenbaum, Raquel Tannenbaum, Samuel Tannenbaum, Toby Tannenbaum, Raquel Tannenbaum, Moishe Tannenbaum, Samuel Tannenbaum, Toby Tannenbaum, Archik Tarabur and his family, Maria Tartakovskaya, Mikhail Tartakovsky, Lola Goldstein Taubman, her 3 brothers, parents, and 34 members of her family. Marguerite Tebrik, Baba Teichner, members of the Tepper family of Kovno, Lithuania. Mrs. Thielberger, Antoni Curiel Telle, Ella Tobias, Ernst Traub, Grete Traub, Nechna Hansler Treitel, Abraham Trepp, Claire Trepp, Martin Trepp, Zipporah Trepp, members of the Trepp family. Anatole Trilling, Rose Trilling, Sarah Trilling, Dora Ullmann, Ernst Siegfried Ullmann, Johanna Ullmann, Elsie Uri, Albert Valli, Isaac van Leuven, Germaine van der Beeken, Zleo van der Beeken, Itzhak Varum, Shaina Varum, Guta Varum, Scheindel Varum, Chaim Varum and family, Jacob Varum and family, Yona Varum and family, Yehuda Varum and family, Vladislav Vasilenko, Luba Maya Weisberg, Roma Weiner, Velvel Weiner, Abraham Vigavenu, Florence Vigavenu, Herta Wachs, Isador Wachs, Henry Wachs, Isador Wachs, members of the Wachs-Boynich family, Renata Wallhaus, Cyril Wald, Newson Wald, Gerda Wald, Hannah Waldberg, Jakub Waldberg, Moses Waldberg, members of the Waldman family, Tony Wasserman, Stanley Vox, Murray Vox, Rose Vox, Leah Weems, Henry B. Wheel.
Helen I. Weil, August Weil, Leibish Weiler, Scheindel Weiler, Simcha Weiler, Israel Weiler, Henya Weiler, Chaim Weinblatt, Esther Weingold, Hannah Weingold, Issachar Weingold, Jacob Joshua Weingold, Sarah Pesa Weingold, Lisette Weischaut, Richard Weischaut, Henry Weiss, Bella Weiss, Bernice Weiss, Fanny Weisberger, Sarah Weissman, Chaim Shalom Weissman, Reuven Weissman, Yenta Weissman, Moishe Weissman, Meir Weissman, Pesach Weissman, Emma Weissman, Aaron Armin Weiss, Dora Feinberg Weiss, Gisela Heisler Weiss, Connie Weiss, Yeno Yoel Weiss, Rivka Weiss, Ruthie Weiss, Sigismund Weiss, Susanna Weiss, Yitzchak Weiss, Bernat Weiss, Maria Loie Bernatny Weiss, Irma Weiss, David Weiss, Pesla Wellner, Simon Wellner, Hans Werner, Frida Wertheim, Isaac Wertheim, Edith Wertheim, Ernestine Wertheimer, Eugene Wessel, Bono Wiener, Hinke Wiener, Rosa Wiener, members of the Wiener family, Zlata Wilczek, Rose Vilchik, Yossi Willinger, Guido Willinger, Edith Helene Willinger Rothschild, Samuel Wilner, Zalman Wilner, Bernadine Hoffman Windmuller, members of the Wingerhoff family, Marta Winkelmann and her children, Soral Winkelmann and her children, members of the Winkler family, members of the Wisansky family, Jacob Wojcicki, Zelda Wojzenski, Eric Wolf, Otto Wolf, Jacob Wolf, Anna Wolf, Zygmunt Wolf, Molly Wohl and her family, Benjamin Wohl and his family, Rachmiel Wolowiansky, Bernard Wyan, Clara Wyan, Therese Wyan, Alexander Vysheviansky, Elzunia Vysheviansky, Leon Vysheviansky, Simon Vysheviansky, Ita Yager, Elliot Yellen, Jacob Yellen, Francine Yellen, Yosef Yitzchak, Esther Sura Yorkovich, Livka Laya Yorkovich, Rivka Ruchel Yorkovich, Shana Frida Yorkovich, Yosik Yorkovich, Brindel Yaskowitz, Chaim Yaskowitz, David Yaskowitz, Leib Yaskowitz, Yvette Udis, Hannah Zabner, Leo Zadel, Sabine Zadel, Isaac Zauber and 21 members of his family, including 8 children, Donia Bleich Zeisel, Eric Zeisler, Freemit Bleich Zeisler, Klava Ziedfinger, Esther Ziedfinger, Fruma Ziedfinger, Leibel Ziedfinger, Saul Ziedfinger, Sesha Ziedfinger, Gietla Zelaznik, Bracha Zelman, members of the Zelver family, members of the Zelinsky family, Vera Zubalski, Maximilian Zwilling, Paula Box-Willing, Mira Zilberman, Malka Konigstein-Zilberstein, Bauma Zilberstein, Rivka Zilberstein, Srul Ziesman, Rivka Ziesman, Moshe Ziesman, Zisha Ziesman.
Simon Alexander, Nellie Alexander, Zalman Amanov, Fega Amanov, Rosa Beck, Eli Bastunsky, Etel Bastunsky, Mordecai Bastunsky, Rivka Bastunsky, Lieb Bastunsky, Regina Bleneter Cohn, Paula Biram, Miguel Blochman, Rosa Blochman, Dobra Zadenberg Blochman, Slota Blonder, Henia Berman, Morris Berman, Shal Burstein, Cyril Burstein, Itka Burstein, David Burstein, Monique Burstein, David Burstein, Lucia Cohen, Gerard Cohen, Avram Sarni, Geza Ernster, Helene Ernster Klaus, Aaron Fellenbaum, Yehoshua Fellenbaum, Esther Fellenbaum, Yitzhak Fellenbaum, Sarah Fellenbaum, Yenta Fish, Chaim Hirsch Fish, Miriam Fish, Genendal Fish, Avraham Meir Fish, Moshe Leba Fish, Shmuel Osher Fish, Fega Fish, Hugo Fleischman, Moshe Friedberg, Sioma Friedberg, Esther Friedberg, Sira Galpern Friedberg, Gisela Fuchs, Samuel Fuchs, Moshe Mordecai Geliebter, Yiska Chaya Geliebter, Pinkas Geliebter, Shlomo Yosef Geliebter, Armin Goldberger, Samuel Goldberger, Yanka Goldberger, Tova Grunstein, Wolf Meyer Grunstein, Rivka Grunstein, Aaron Grunstein, Chaim Yehuda Grunstein, Rivka Grunblatt, Yosef Grunblatt, Nissan Gerstel, Udal Gerstel, Hugo Haberman, Hannah Haberman, members of the Haberman family of Munkachvo, Olga Hyman Levian, Rachel Hoda, Meir Hoda, Fela Yakobovich, Yakob Yakobovich, Sarah Yakobovich, Leah Kammer, Altka Kaplan, Hans Katz, Regina Kirsch Magnus, Mor Klaus, Laszlo Kohn, Gittel Krakauer, Alfred Krell, Anna Krell, Lauser Langsman, Nechama Langsman, Rachel Lazarowicz Regnich, Moritz Leuchter, Rosa Leuchter, Linda Levinsky, David Levinsky, Max Levinsky, Ernestine Levinsky, Heinz Loeb, Julie Loeb, Esther Hollander Lomsky, Shmuel Lomsky, Rachel Lomsky, Tosha Lomsky, Heniek Lomsky, Helene Lomsky Fellenbaum, Oscar Lustig, Alfred Lustig, Richard Lustig, Lily Lustig, Marianne Lustig, Renee Magnus, Leon Magnus, Israel Maloff, Sarah Maloff, Ilsa Moses, Hugo Hertz Moses, Froim Portman, Rachilia Portman, Sarah Rice, Max Rice, Arpad Rice, Isidore Rice, Leah Sarny Renshovich, Avram Renshovich, Hannah Zilbergold Renshovich, Yankel Renshovich, Yaakov Rosenberg, Joseph Jacob Rosendahl, Katarina Rosendahl Wolfers, Sarah Cederbaum Schwartzberg, David Schwartzberg, Hermann Seligman, Luna Sevi, Sarina Sevi, Joseph Sevi, Norman Silver, Zalman Slomovicus, Zipporah Slomovicus, Ita Reva Slomovicus, Carolina Sommer, Lieb Spiro, Ruchla Tahimin, members of the Tankilrot family of Shamir Niki, Poland, Richard Vogel, Rosalia Vogel, Otto Vorschek, Marie Vorschek, Vlasta Vorschek, Leopold Vorschek, Schall Wachstock, Margit Klein Weisenberg, Sandor Weisenberg, Jano Weisenberg, Miklos Weisenberg, Erzsébet Weisenberg, Clara Weisenberg, Eugene Wessel, Recha David Witt, Shane Zelster, Gittel Zelster, Shaky Zelster, Moshek Zelster, Vika Zelster.
At the rising of the sun and at its going down, we remember them. At the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. At the opening of the buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. At the blueness of the skies and in the warmth of summer, we remember them. At the rustling of the leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. At the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember them. As long as we live, they too will live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. When we are weary and in the need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joy we crave to share, we remember them. When we have decisions that are difficult to make, we remember them. When we have achievements that are based on theirs, we remember them. As long as we live, they too will live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them.
We are deeply moved and grateful by your participation in adding so many names to our list. I'll now read the new names that we have received over the past few days. Ada Barkan, Shalom Barkan, Mendel Barkan, Stara Barkan, Miriam Barkan Wald, Ben Dov Berek Bagel Eisen, Chana Monat Bagel Eisen, Hedda Berger, Chaya Bloom Milner, Yoshua Boltz, Fega Boltz, Razel Boltz, Anita Chaberman, members of the Cohen family, Adele Pessa Simmerman, Chemech Simmerman, Henya Simmerman, Mendela Simmerman, Abraham Simmerman, Sarah Alalea Simmerman, Kurt Cherney, Otakar Cherney, Charlotta Cherney, Ben Dover, Paul Fisher, Gisela Frey, Serena Frey, Isidore Frey, Moshe Friedberg, Esther Friedberg, Sioma Friedberg, Syra Friedberg, Moshe Friedberg, Esther Friedberg, members of the Fulop family, Helen Ginsberg, Moshe Ginsberg, Tonka Ginsberg, Irvin Ginsberg, Tirza Ginsberg, Adela Ginsberg, Erica Gluck, Baya Maria Goldman, Chaim Goldman, Roja Goldman, Natan Goldman, Yosef Goldman, Labe Goldman, Rebecca Goldman, Jewish community of Grzewo, Poland. Ursula Renate Gross, Inga Gross, Anastasia Gross, Oscar Gruner, Masha Gulden, Heinrich Gutfried, Sigmund Gutfried, Vilmos Haber, Aranka Haber, Tomi Haber, Salo Hamburger, Kurt Hartogson, Basha Heinrich, Estera Heinrich Rakowski, Sarah Helfgott, Jacob Helfgott, Lausche Helfgott, Anna Herling, Sophia Herling, Razel Hilfstein, Renee Hilfstein, Chaim Hilfstein, Helena Hilfstein, Isaac Ingeber, Rosalia Ingeber, David Jaffe, Edna Kalman, Bella Kalman, Tova Kuttner, Favish Kuttner, Hirsch Kuttner, Esther Kuttner, Brucha Kuttner, Glicka Kuttner, Chaya Kuttner. Jacqueline Laufer, Razel Lewenda Mishkovsky, Marcus Liebster, Greta Gertel Lowenthal, Richard Lustig, Hajka Lutsky Rosenberg, Yakov Machnik, Yitzhak Melanowicz and family, Ruchel Malz, Shendela Malz, Moshe Malz, Chaim Malz, Lipka Malz, Shepska Malz, Anshel Malz, Yosef Milner, Celia Milner, Miriam Milner, Rivka Milner, Chaim Milner, Reuben Milner, Chana Milner, Mara Milner, Kayla Minkowski, Herschel Minzenmacher, Chaim Mishkovsky, Motel Mishkovsky, Esther Mishkovsky, Victoria Nachmais, Levi Nachmias, Yosef Nachmias, Irma Neuhauser, Robert Itamar Neuhauser, Victor Yehuda Meir Neuhauser, Erica Etia Neuhauser, Simon Beryl Newman, Rosa Weintraub Newman, Toba Newman, Marcos Newman, Yaakov Wolf Newman, Devorah Newman Schiffman, Aaron Piskiel, Tauba Piskiel, Brucha Piskiel, Esther Piskiel, Leibish Piskiel, Tsunami Piskiel, Golda Piskiel, Sarah Piskiel, Leah Piskiel, Ethel Piskiel, Simon Pupko, Etty Pudlis, Martha Punitzer, Herbert Punitzer, Simcha Rakowski, Janina Rakowski, Jersey Rakowski, Shlomo Reidlich, Samuel Reich, Yechiel Ringevertz, Leah Ringevertz, Pearl Ringevertz, Chaya Ringevertz, Malka Ringevertz, Frimit Ringevertz, Magda Robishek, members of the Robishek family, Abraham Rogozinski, Rachel Rogozinski, Aaron Rosenberg, Gittel Rosenfeld, Avraham Rosenfeld, Chaya Rosenfeld, Etta Rosenfeld, Michael Rosenfeld, Rachel Rosenfeld, Rivka Rosenblit, Maya Rosenblit, Gabriel Rosenblit, Richard Solomon, Marianne Solomon, Catherine Schiff, Henry Schiff, Esther Schiff, Max Schiffman, Tulik Schiffman, Kyla Schiffman, Golda Shniakovich, Rachel Shniakovich, Mordechai Stein, Eliyahu Mendel Strum, Rivkala Strum, Ruchala Strum, Menachem Talman, Omri Talman, Rebecca Treitel, Jewish community of Vyazhin in Belarus, David Wald, Sura Wellner, Morris Wenzel, Sophie Wenzel, Leah Walmuth, Tauba Walmuth, Natan Walmuth, Joseph Walmuth, Menachem Mendel Walmuth, Samuel Walmuth, Hannah Yaskowitz, Isaac Yaskowitz, Ben Yaskowitz, Moshe Yaskowitz, Shmuel Yaskowitz, Avram Yaskowitz. Yaakov Kleinbaum, Fega Kleinbaum, Michal Kleinbaum, Yair Kleinbaum, Rosa Beck, Isaac Beck, Boca Beck, Chaim Beck, Chaya Beck, Rachel Beck, Zlota Blonder, Shimon Blonder, Devorah Blonder, Kalman Blonder, Shandel Blonder, Rivka Blonder, Abraham Blonder, Nechama Blonder, Yisrael Buchsbaum, Nechama Buchsbaum, Greta Scheck, Regina Scheck, Martha Moses, David Ichenhauser, Ursula Zaid, Marta Zaid, Hugo Zaid, Salo Hamburger, Carl Speyer, Hilda Speyer, Max Rodriguez Garcia, Ellie Rodriguez Garcia, Sipora Rodriguez Garcia, Rosette Vierman Rodriguez Garcia, Ita Riva Slomovicius, Motel Slomovicius, Hanitach Slomovicius, Muncha Slomovicius, Yena Slomovicius, Tsilla Slomovicius, Mena Slomovicius and her two daughters, Bella Slomovicius, Chaya Slomovicius, Fischel Michalski, Yankel Michalski, Chaimski Michalski, Ethel Zelber Ein, Shimon Zelber Ein, Yankel Koten, Abraham Washstock, Fega Washstock, Zipporah Washstock, Lizer Washstock, Sarah Washstock, Yosef Washstock, Moshe Washstock, Chana Washstock, Sarah Leah Washstock, Avram Yaakov Washstock. Members of the Kohler family, members of the Schwartz family, Felix Nussbaum, Yitzchak Malanovitz, and family. Louis de Groot, the Waldman family, the Auberger family, Spitz family, the Rosenberg family, Oscar and Minna de Groot, Doba Gendelman, Israel Pearl, Joseph Pearl, Charlotte Pearl, Esther Newman, family of Uri Eliezer Hurwitz, Devorah Hausner, David Hausner, the community of Roshiskis, Lithuania, David Yisyomin, Naum Timkovsky, Esther Hausner, Aaron Hausner, the Halber family, the Edelstein family, the Glazer family, Samuel Chazanov, Yitzchak Milanovich, and members of his family from Auschwitz, Poland, Hirsch David. Yehi Zichronam Baruch, may their memories be for a blessing. Thank you for joining us during this year's Yom HaShoah Reading of the Names ceremony. As the rabbi at Jewish Family and Children's Services, I once again extend our gratitude to all of the Bay Area community leaders who have participated in this year's ceremony, reading these names of loved ones and family members of Bay Area residents who perished in the Holocaust. To conclude the reading of the names, I offer a prayer composed by the late Chief Rabbi, Lord Jonathan Sachs. Today, on Yom HaShoah, we remember the victims of the greatest crime of man against man. The young, the old, the innocent, the 1.5 million children, starved, shot, given lethal injections, gassed, burned, and turned to ash because they were deemed guilty of the crime of being different. We remember what happens when hate takes hold of the human heart and turns it to stone. What happens when victims cry for help and there is no one listening. What happens when humanity fails to recognize that those who are not in our image are nonetheless in God's image. We remember and pay tribute to the survivors who bore witness to what happened and to the victims, so that, robbed of their lives, they would not be robbed also of their deaths. We remember and give thanks for the righteous of the nations who saved lives, often at risk of their own, teaching us how in the darkest night we can light a candle of hope. Today on Yom HaShoah, we call on you, Almighty God, to help us hear your voice that says in every generation, do not murder, do not stand idly by the blood of your neighbor, do not oppress the stranger. We know that while we do not have the ability to change the past, we can change the future. We know that while we cannot bring the dead back to life, we can ensure that their memories live on and that their deaths were not in vain. And so on this Yom HaShoah, we commit ourselves to one simple act, Yizkor, remember. May the souls of the victims be bound up in the bond of everlasting life, and let us say, Amen. This concludes the reading of the names ceremony. Thank you for joining us. We now invite you to stay with us for your Yom HaShoah commemoration, which will begin shortly.
Moishe Beregovsky is considered to be one of the foremost ethnomusicologists who collected Jewish folk music of Eastern Europe in the 1920s through post-war 1940s, documenting, recording, transcribing a huge collection of work, and this is one of those pieces.
Music provides us a space for reflection and is just one of the many ways that a story is told. When we travel to Eastern Europe today, we can see the rebirth of Yiddish culture in the growing appreciation of klezmer music. This was not the case in the 50 years after the Holocaust. The Beregovsky film we just watched takes us back in time to the pre-Holocaust era, to the streets of Kiev, once full of beautiful Yiddish music, dancing, and a thriving Jewish community. Beregovsky survived the Holocaust, received a PhD, and is remembered as one of the great ethnomusicologists. Today, we come together to commemorate not only the destruction and devastation of the Holocaust, but also the stories of those lost and the amazing contributions of the survivors that they made after the war. Thank you for inviting us into your home this evening. It has been a very long year for our community and for humanity. I'm honored that the important tradition of Yom HaShoah continues. Yom HaShoah is truly a community effort. Thank you to the partners for making this program possible. It is a testament to the importance of this event. I hope that you were able to join us for the very powerful reading of names. We were honored to have San Francisco rabbis, elected officials, and representatives from the Israeli, German, Italian, and Portuguese consulates participate in our reading of names. Today, I join you from the Tauber Holocaust Library, surrounded by our 14,000 books and more than 40 years of Bay Area history. Just like the Haggadah guides us through the story of Passover, tradition reminds us to come together on Yom HaShoah to collectively tell the stories of those who did not survive and the survivors who may no longer be here with us to speak for themselves. I'd like to share how resilient our survivor community has been over the past year. Survivors from the William J. Lowenberg Speakers Bureau have mastered Zoom and several other online platforms to inspire more than 3,200 students virtually over the past 12 months. They even speak with adults at companies in our community, including 500 Apple employees in a program that ran this morning. Today, more than 25 survivors join our Pell University Fellow in a special Zoom room to participate in Yom HaShoah, and our program is also being streamed live at Rhoda Goldman Plaza so that survivors in our community can connect. Thank you to my JFCS colleagues who go to great efforts to help survivors and other seniors in our community age with great dignity and stay connected through technology. I have never been as proud as I am today to work for Jewish Family and Children's Services, as we help more than 120,000 clients each year through crisis due to wildfire, economic instability, lack of food, and disease. If you're learning about the work of JFCS tonight for the first time, please know that we are here to support you. The JFCS Holocaust Center is dedicated to guiding communities that struggle with hate and anti-Semitism. It goes back to our very establishment in 1979, when the Holocaust Center was created as a response to an anti-Semitic incident in the Sunset District of San Francisco. The Bay Area, like many communities worldwide, is suffering from a surge of anti-Semitism and racism. This past fall, JFCS was honored to partner with the Marin County Office of Education, led by Superintendent of Schools Mary Jane Burke. Together, we established the Confronting Anti-Semitism series. This program, the first of its kind, has already engaged more than 1,000 individuals, and we still have one more series left to go. One highlight of the program for me this year was when 100 families came together to hear testimony from a local survivor who was named Anita. Anita, a member of our Speakers Bureau, inspired these parents who sat alongside their children, young teenagers, up through college age. What I've learned in my time here at the Holocaust Center is that to truly make systemic change, the lessons of the classroom must be supported with family education. I'd like to thank the leaders in our community who make Confronting Anti-Semitism possible. I'd like to introduce Lydia Shorenstein, chair of the JFCS Holocaust Center and great supporter of the work we do. The Preisler-Shorenstein Institute for Holocaust Education leads our effort to inspire youth to be socially responsible and morally courageous individuals. Lydia?
Good evening. My name is Lydia Shorenstein, and I'm proud to be here today to commemorate Yom HaShoah and Jewish Family and Children's Services. My late father, Simon Preisler, a survivor of the Holocaust, inspired our family to establish the Preisler-Shorenstein Institute with Jewish Family and Children's Services to support Holocaust education now and for the future. Survivors continue to be our greatest teachers and inspire thousands of students each year. As the survivors continue to age, we must plan and establish the resources for the future of Holocaust education in the post-survivor era. As chair of the Council of Children of Survivors, I am proud to be part of the tremendous impact we make. The Jewish Family and Children's Services Holocaust Center annually reaches more than 25,000 students and teachers from hundreds of schools throughout Northern California. In the face of continued anti-Semitism and discrimination around the world, the need for Holocaust education continues to grow. Each year, we celebrate an exemplary educator in the Bay Area for their efforts to teach about the Holocaust and patterns of genocide in memory of the late Morris Weiss, the founder of the Holocaust Center. Today, I am pleased to introduce Superintendent of Schools, Mary Jane Burke. Mary Jane has been a longtime friend of the Holocaust Center. When there was a surge of anti-Semitism in Marin County, she did not shy away from addressing this challenge. Together with her colleagues in Marin, she established a Confronting Anti-Semitism program, a series of 12 workshops for students, teachers, and parents. This program has been a special partnership between the Holocaust Center and the Marin Public Schools that has reached more than 1,000 individuals. Mary Jane, we are so pleased to award you with $10,000 for resources and educational opportunities in your community.
So thank you so much, Lydia. I'm very honored on behalf of the educators, the amazing educators in Marin County, to have the opportunity to say a few words about how honored we are to receive the Morris Weiss Award. One of the things that we know is true about great educators, they know when to partner and who to partner with. And those of us in Marin County, as we've been dealing with a myriad of issues around anti-Semitic behavior, we knew that we needed partners in order to be effective and do the right thing when it counted most. And so to the Jewish Family and Children's Services and the Holocaust Center and so many other partners, thank you so much for helping guide us and to ensure that we have the resources we need to be sure that students in our community and their families feel safe, informed, and always know that we see them. And we thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary Jane. I would now like to introduce two colleagues that have made great contributions in the fields of Holocaust education, research, and remembrance. I am honored to introduce Dr. Deborah Lipstadt, Dorot Professor at Holocaust Studies at Emory University. Dr. Lipstadt has published and taught about the Holocaust and anti-Semitism for close to 40 years. Dr. Lipstadt will be in conversation with my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Anita Friedman, Executive Director of Jewish Family and Children's Services. Together, they will be addressing the surge of anti-Semitism in our community, locally, nationally, and globally.
Welcome, Deborah. Welcome to San Francisco. I'm so glad to
Thank
see
you.
you.
I'd rather be there than on Zoom, but that day will soon come.
Well, you're with us, even through Zoom. You're with
I
us.
am,
And you're in
that
our hearts. You know, I remember the first time you and I met. I ran into you in Rwanda. We were, I think, both invited. Remember, we were both invited by the President Kagame because they were learning how to commemorate their 20th anniversary of their genocide.
That's right. That's right.
And you were there, and I was there.
I spoke. Right. That's right. That's right. I spoke in the parliament about Holocaust denial and Rwanda genocide denial and Armenian genocide denial and compared the three and got a terrific reaction. I've been in touch with scholars and others from Rwanda ever since.
Yeah. You know, I think it was interesting for me because unfortunately, we in the Jewish community are the experts in how to deal with genocide, how to commemorate it, how to teach it, how to deal with it, how to handle the emotional aspects of it. And I was very honored also to be included in working with the Rwandan community for how to teach. and they used a lot of the approaches that we use in this country in a way in the bush to teach their young people. So we have a lot to talk about and a lot to teach. But since we were together in Rwanda, our paths have crossed many times, and you've been a part of this community many times, and you know that this community really has emerged as a leader in Holocaust education and also understanding patterns of genocide, which is quite remarkable. Because I remember there was a photograph that was shown earlier of the first commemoration, which I think was in 1978 or 79, where I was asked to speak as a child of survivors. It was at Congregation Emmanuel. It was the first commemoration, major commemoration in San Francisco, more than 35 years after the Holocaust. The Holocaust ended in 45, and we didn't have a major community-wide event until the late 70s. Since then, we have dozens of events here and all over, and a major force in Holocaust education through our Holocaust Center that Morgan leads, through lay leadership who are deeply involved. We publish books. We published a book that I was involved in called Rivka's Diary in 15 languages. We're doing documentaries, and we work with scholars all over the world. And among them, you are our hero. You have devoted your life. You have devoted your life to studying the Holocaust and anti-Semitism. You wrote about the Eichmann trial, the film Denial, and the book Extraordinary. What a tour de force that movie was to educate. You wrote Denying the Holocaust, Growing Assault on Truth and Memory, and more. And most recently, you wrote, I think, a really brilliant book that I really appreciated very much called Anti-Semitism Here and Now. So you have now turned your attention to not just focusing on the past and on the Holocaust, but to what's happening in the present and where do we go from here. And that's what I'd like to really focus on tonight in our conversation. And I want to do it in a Jewish way. What I mean by a Jewish way is, it always starts with tears. Our stories are profound. We have, gathered together today, children of survivors like I am, survivors, many survivors, all of us who care deeply about what happened and want to learn from it, students, we have Jews, we have people of many faiths and many ethnic backgrounds, all here because we want to understand what happened and where we are and where we go, what's our path forward. And I think you can help us with that. So I want to ask you a little bit about why did you write this book? And was this book hard for you to write? Was it different in some way for you to focus on what's happening now?
Okay, before I begin, just one note to the Rwanda that today is the anniversary of the beginning of the Rwanda genocide. It just happens to fall simultaneously with Yom HaShoah, but I did want, and we're in a moment of commemoration, and that certainly is a moment of commemoration. The French have just released a study showing their complicity in what happened or their failure to stop it. So as much as we've learned from the Shoah, we haven't learned enough. About my book, Anti-Semitism Here and Now, it was exceptionally hard to write because when I write about the Holocaust, I'm writing about what was. Even when I write about Holocaust denial, I'm writing about a phenomena that's out there, but is still limited in impact. When I was writing about anti-Semitism, things were changing daily all around me. And I'm often reminded of the fact that I had some colleagues who, when I told them I was writing a book on anti-Semitism, they sort of said, two of them said, do we need another book on anti-Semitism? And I said, I think we do. And then as I was writing it, at one point, I saw them again and they said to me, Deborah, when's that book coming out? I said, in about a year and a half, I'm almost done. And then they saw me when it came out and they said, thank you for writing this. So the same people, their change in attitude. It was hard to write because it was also hard to get a handle on it. I write the book as a series of letters to my students and letters to a Jewish student and a non-Jewish colleague. I had more false starts on this book than any other book I've written. First, I was doing it country by country. It was so boring that I was bored writing it. I mean, it was just too tedious. And then I realized that what was happening was that people needed to they were confused. They didn't understand. Jews didn't understand where this was coming from. Non-Jews didn't quite understand what it was, and nobody seemed to know what to do about it. So I jumped in and I learned, but the actual impetus, and this I'll end the long answer to your question, was an op-ed that I had in the New York Times. I wrote an op-ed right after the Gaza war of 2014. And, I wrote about the fact that I, for years, have always been one of those who said, wait a minute, anti-Semitism in America is not such a problem. Let's not overreact to certain things. And then I watched the anti-Semitism that was involved in some of the protests against the Gaza war. And I don't mean protesting the Gaza war was necessarily anti-Semitic. It wasn't. But there was anti-Semitic innuendo, anti-Semitic themes, or the anti-Semites used it to express their own hatred. And I wrote this op-ed in the Times saying that I was worried in a way that I hadn't really ever been worried before. In fact, I started the op-ed with, what's the definition of a Jewish telegram? Start worrying, details follow. Well, the op-ed got tremendous play. It was number one on that list of most emailed and most read, etc. And my literary agent called me and said, well, where's the book proposal? I said, I'm not writing a book on this. I've wallowed in Holocaust denial long enough. I'm not going to wallow in this. This is even worse. He said, no, Deborah, you've got to. Your voice is needed. So I sat down and wrote it. And I'm very gratified by the response it's gotten. It's found a home not just amongst Jews, but amongst non-Jews. It's been translated into numerous languages and more are coming: Italian, French, Hebrew, German. I think there's a Japanese one in the way, etc. So I'm sad that there's such a need for it, but I'm glad if people are paying attention that it's my book that they're reading.
That's wonderful. I actually thought in one of the books that we published called Rivka's Diary, I thought that interest in issues of anti-Semitism or issues of the Holocaust was going to peter out. I thought people were going to lose interest as the years go by. And what I saw also is that there's an increase in interest in these kinds of issues. People are grappling with how to understand what happened. With the Rivka's Diary book that we produced, 15 languages from Portuguese to Slovenian to Italian, all these different languages. And people, young people especially, are really interested in understanding what is going on. And with regard to your book, currently, I'm not surprised because we're all grappling with trying to understand what's happening. In the last decades, there's been an increase. We all know that it's documented in hate of all kinds towards many populations, including Jews. And I think right after the war and for years afterwards, we thought, well, people are going to learn what happened during the Holocaust. This is not going to continue. And in fact, we see this resurgence. And I'll just mention one thing that really brought it home for me, and then I want to talk to you about why. I had occasion to have a meeting, a small meeting with just a handful of people with Chancellor Merkel, not a few months ago in Germany. And she said that one of the things she's the most concerned about is anti-Semitism on the left in Germany and Europe, anti-Semitism on the right, and then, of course, there's anti-Semitism in the Muslim and the Arab world. And they're all different, but they're all the same. So here we see in this country increased anti-Semitism on college campuses. We have the problem in Europe. She even appointed anti-Semitism like a cabinet level position, which they had never had before because she was so concerned. And we see it taking the form on the left and on the right. We had a big struggle in California, which I'm sure you probably heard about, around ethnic studies, where the original effort was to essentially erase Jews as an ethnic group and talk about racism without talking about anti-Semitism and talking about genocide without even mentioning the Holocaust. That is truly remarkable as a form of potentially state-sponsored anti-Semitism, which is a new issue. So tell me something, Deborah. I'm interested in your thoughts. Where is all this hatred coming from now? What's going on?
It's you would think that after writing this book and being around the world, both actually and then as of last March, the past year, virtually, I would have an exact answer for you. I think it's from a number of sources. First of all, it's always been there. We were naive to think that it had gone away after the Holocaust. It hadn't. In fact, it was present here in the United States. Most survivors came to this country 1948, 49, 50. And why is that? Why didn't they come in 45, 46, 47? Because the original immigration bills were written in a way that prevented Jews from coming here. You had to be a Baltic agricultural worker. You had to be in the Western zone in a period before Jews were released from the Eastern zone, et cetera, et cetera. And it was only when Harry Truman was made aware of how anti-Semitic these were that the laws were changed and the bill was changed, and that's when we had the influx of so many survivors, maybe even your parents, Anita. So it's not something new. But what we have today is sort of the perfect storm. And you mentioned it, but I want to reiterate some of the things. We have it on the right and we have it on the left. Right now in our country, it's more prevalent on the right. We saw it on June 6th on Capitol Hill. We saw it in Charlottesville. There's a civil case being brought in Charlottesville, and I'm very pleased that I'm going to be a witness in the case on the anti-Semitism that was so present. We saw it, of course, in the tragedy in Pittsburgh. We saw it in San Diego. That's all coming from the right. That's coming from something that we call that the right calls the far right. And of course, I'm not talking about everybody on the right or everybody on the left. White genocide replacement theory, which argues that, this theory was first floated, I would say in the 70s, sort of after the great surge of civil rights legislation. It's from the Turner Diaries was one of the earliest places in which it was found. And essentially it argued Black people of color are not smart enough, capable enough. This is what the white supremacist was arguing, to have gotten these laws passed on their own. There has to be someone behind them, manipulating them, not helping them, but manipulating them in a way that will help them. So there's a puppeteer manipulating the puppet. And who is that puppeteer? The Jew. And that theory has stayed in place and only gotten stronger, especially in recent years, in part in response or using the great migration in this country coming from the South, in Europe, coming from Africa, from the Middle East, that this is an attempt to overthrow white Christian culture. And I think the important thing to remember here and to recognize here, especially as our country is racked with so much division and so much white supremacy, white power, nationalism, that to those people on the who adhere to this theory, anti-Semitism is sort of the bedrock onto which they build their white supremacy racism. It's not that the two are coterminous. The two are linked together. One of the people whose work has been so good on this is Eric Ward, who is your neighbor to the north in Oregon. I know who has close connections with people at Berkeley and at Stanford, et cetera. An African-American man who talks about you can't understand white supremacy and white power in this country unless you understand and address anti-Semitism. And there's been a refusal to do that. On sectors of the left, and we saw this primarily or very graphically in England in the under the Corbyn-led Labour Party, it comes in from a different sentiment. Instead of looking at the Jew as not white, as other, manipulating the people of color, it looks at the Jew as someone of power and privilege, and therefore not a victim, and argues that we as people on the left are true hate prejudice with every fiber of our being, so we couldn't possibly be perpetrators of anti-Semitism. So it's different on both sides. It's much more severe in our country right now on the right, but that doesn't ignore the fact that it is present there and present in other places. In Europe, as Anita, as you know quite well, it's in Poland, coming from the right with the lawsuits against two very fine historians. It's in Hungary with Orban. In France, Le Pen thinks she can come back to power and coming from the right, etc. And sometimes it's learning, even QAnon. Which is riddled with anti-Semitism, plays down the Jew. It said it uses the word globalists. So we've got it from the right, we've got it from the left. And the last piece I want to put in here, and we have it, of course, from Islamist extremists. I'm not talking about all Muslims, God forbid, but Islamist extremists who use it in a very profound way. But right now, the big change in the past decade, 2 decades, is we have a delivery system. We have social media. And I would be the last person to beat up on social media. I can't live my life without social media. I'm on it all the time for my research, for my teaching, for my writing. But not long ago, if you wanted to spread these ideas, if you wanted to find out something about Holocaust denial, you'd have to get it in a plain envelope with a P.O. box return address. Now you just flip on the internet and it's all there for you to see, with anti-Semitism and other things. So it is a very serious situation, which is too often not taken seriously by people because they look at what are the Jews complaining about, which of course is an anti-Semitic sort of attitude as well.
Yeah. Well, even Jews sometimes have that attitude. So Jews can be anti-Semitic just like anybody else.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that brings us to a very complicated question I want to ask you. In all of this increase in anti-Semitism on the right, on the left, where does the role of anti-Israel, anti-Zionist sentiment fit in?
Okay, I think that's sort of like the 900-pound whatever sitting in the middle of the table. First of all, to say something that I think everybody who's watching knows this, but I want to make it quite explicit. Criticism of Israel is not anti-Semitism. If you want to hear criticism of Israel, read Haaretz. Go to the Knesset. Go to a cafe in Tel Aviv, but just go to the Knesset where everybody's screaming at each other. You have to really be able to follow the Hebrew, which even I, who am pretty fluent in Hebrew, sometimes find it hard to do. But criticism is not anti-Semitism, just like criticism of American policy is not anti-Americanism. It's when it goes beyond the criticism, the number of issues. First of all, when it explains the actions which are being criticized as, oh, these are Jews, or this is how Jews behave, or Israel has inordinate power because it's associated with Jews and Jews have all this power. Those kind of things. You get that anti-Semitic sort of view creeping in. When you see Israel as the sole culprit in the Middle East for problems in the Middle East. That's not to say Israel hasn't done things wrong. Every country has done things wrong. I have no country which hasn't. But when you fail to look at it in a balanced kind of way, I have to ask, where is that coming from? When this is the only human rights problem you see. Now, I know everybody may have a human rights problem. This is my issue. I'm more interested in Myanmar. I'm more interested in China, whatever it might be. So people do not have to prove their bona fides by giving attention to every human rights issue in the world. But when this is the major one, the only one, when things are completely pushed out of proportion, it may not be anti-Semitism, but I've got to ask, where is it coming from? So I think that's a very important way of looking at it. And then, of course, there's the the other 900-pound monster sitting in the middle of the table, the whole issue of BDS.
Right.
I know students who support BDS who are not anti-Semites. In fact, they say, well, just like my parents supported a boycott of South Africa when it was apartheid, this is a way of getting Israel to change its policies. And I understand that. I don't often agree with it because I don't believe in boycotts in general. But nonetheless, I think we should recognize that. However, to fail to acknowledge that the people who are behind the BDS movement, who helped organize the BDS movement, who found the BDS movement, had failed to acknowledge that they have engaged in overt anti-Semitism is simply wrong. And what makes me very sad and concerns me is the weaponization of anti-Semitism. I have friends on the left who see anti-Semitism on the right, and they see it very clearly, and they see it very precisely, and they see it very correctly. They are making correct arguments and valid arguments. And I have friends on the right, yes, I have some friends on the right, and they see anti-Semitism on the left, and much of what they're seeing, if they're, not going way overboard, is legitimate. It's legitimate criticism. It's legitimate acknowledgement of what the problem is. My worry is when both of those groups fail to see the anti-Semitism right next to them. And that's where they have the most, what do the students say, street credibility with the people who are on the same side of the political platform. I'm not equating the two. I'm not, because there are people who will hear that think I've been accused of that. It's just wrong. Right now, and as I have said a number of times in our country, we have a much bigger problem from far-right extremism, but it's there on both sides. And that's one of the ubiquitous and if unique aspects of anti-Semitism. Most prejudices tend to come from one end of the political spectrum. Usually, certainly racial, ethnic prejudices come from more likely to come from the right, not always, but more likely. Anti-Semitism, as you noted, Anita, comes from both the right and the left. It's a conspiracy theory. And what we're facing in this country and in much of the world, because with the internet things go viral so quickly in a nanosecond, is conspiracy theories about elections, conspiracy theories about vaccines, conspiracy theories about pandemics, conspiracy theories about immigration. And the thing to recognize that in many of those conspiracy theories, not all, but many of them are rooted in a certain degree of anti-Semitism. And it's a real issue.
But a lot of this, ultimately, whether it's on the right or on the left, or it's Islamic extremism, ultimately, it all goes to, do Jews have a right to exist? Do Jews have a right to exist? Does the Jewish state have a right to exist? And that is some of what we're grappling with. I mean, if boycotting Israel, does that have to do with just changing policy? Or does it have to do with, you don't have a right to ultimately exist? And all the questions that you raise in your book, I think, are so critical, because a lot of it has to do with what's happening in college campuses. I mean, we're all finding it very difficult to deal with what's happening on college campuses. That's where you live. That's where you're very knowledgeable. A lot of the letters that are included in your book, which has made it so popular and has resonated so deeply, is grappling with what do you do on college campuses about anti-Semitism. Holocaust denial is a part of anti-Semitism. Where should we go with this in terms of dealing with it? And I'd like you to also comment on where does Holocaust education fit into grappling with what we're happening?
That's a lot to do in the.
It is. You have a few minutes to do it, but Holocaust education should not only be about what happened.
Well, let me start with Holocaust education. Obviously, I think it's crucial because that's what I've been doing for all these years, ever since I started teaching at the University of Washington in 1976. So I think it's crucial, but to think that Holocaust education alone is a magic bullet against anti-Semitism doesn't work. It's got to be part and parcel of understanding of prejudice, understanding of hatred, and understanding of where language can lead to. If we just say, oh, and they killed 6 million Jews, they murdered 6 million Jews, that's not going to make somebody who is inclined towards anti-Semitism suddenly say, oh, now I see I'm wrong. Remember that anti-Semitism is the oldest hatred. It's been here for so long. But I think the importance, I've come to understand the importance of Holocaust education. I was just doing this in a seminar this afternoon, is when we were talking, in fact, about Holocaust denial, because it's the courses, the Holocaust in the courtroom, so we're up to my trial, that this is a problem that ties into, as I was saying earlier, to all other hatreds. It's a prejudice. Unless you understand anti-Semitism as a prejudice and what a prejudice is, and how anti-Semitism is similar to racism and similar to other prejudices and different at the same time, you'll never be able to fight it. What's going on in the college campus, what's disturbing to me so much, is the way Israel has been brought into things. Again, there's nothing wrong with criticizing Israel, etc. But Israel has come in and the topic is misused in so many different ways, and that is exceptionally disturbing. But most of all, with it has come the weaponization of anti-Semitism. If a Jew says, hey, wait a minute, we've got to include anti-Semitism. Well, California, you saw it. I mean, I'm bringing coals to Newcastle. You saw it in this curriculum as it originally was. What are you Jews complaining about? You know, what are you trying to freeload on the study of racism and the fight against racism and other forms of prejudice? Unless we recognize the centrality of anti-Semitism to hate in general, how it is a cornerstone. And the other point is, and with this I'll try to end this question so we can maybe get one more in. Unless we recognize that anti-Semitism is not just a threat to Jews. Of course, it's a threat to Jews, but it's also a threat to the democracy we so treasure. There is no healthy democracy in history which has harbored anti-Semitism and stayed a healthy democracy. Prime example, the Weimar Republic. There was anti-Semitism percolating up. The Nazis grabbed it, went with it, built it up even more, and you ended up with a totalitarian regime. Anti-Semitism creates doubts about conspiracy theories, about banks, about the financial system, the election system, the voting system. It's used to create doubts about democracy. It's a threat to all of us.
Which means that Jews alone cannot fight anti-Semitism.
That's right.
And
that's exactly right.
That's critical. And so what you speak to has a lot to do with how we teach about the Holocaust in the contemporary environment. How do we broaden it to understand hate in general, and how we understand the role of Jews in the greater society and the role of hate in the greater society. And that's what our mandate is. I'm just happy to say that we're in a position now where people are interested in learning, and we're teaching it. We're teaching it in new ways, in relevant ways, in ways that really engage thousands and thousands of young people. Teachers are involved. They come to us for education. And so that makes me very hopeful about the future. So we need to end right now, but I just want to thank you, Deborah. We have a lot of friends. The Jews are not in this alone. We're fighting the good fight for other people. We have many allies in this fight. I was reading what Martin Luther King said about this issue of fighting hate. He said, in the end, we'll remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. Now is the time for us all to suit up. These are not easy times. It's not easy times for the Jewish community or for other communities. We need to work on this together. And I want to just end with a reminder from what I started with, which is that I wanted to spend our time together in the Jewish way, which is to start with tears, to start with the greatest crime ever committed against humanity, with pain, tremendous pain and loss that continues. But we want to end with hope, because in the end, right now, we have Israel. We have sovereignty for the first time in thousands of years. We have a renaissance of interest in Jewish learning in the United States and Israel and around the world, including women. And we have a very strong Jewish community, well organized, with major institutions like the Holocaust Center throughout the country and throughout the world that are teaching our story to our own people, to our own children, and to the world. We've never been in that kind of situation before, where we've had these two major centers of very vibrant Jewish life. And so we have a lot to be grateful for. So I want to thank you, because you are among the things we're grateful for. I want to thank you for being our leader, for providing us with the clarity, the moral clarity that we need in order to fight the good fight. And God bless you, Deborah, for all the good you're doing in this world.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And we move from oi to joy. You know, there's always the oi. The oi is always there, but let's also hold on to the joy of all the things you spoke about just now. Thank you so much for having me. And I want to see you all in the flesh very soon.
Yeah, we will look forward to you joining us again soon. So be well, my friend. Be well, my friend.
Thank you, friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lipstadt and Dr. Friedman. Your conversation was fascinating, thought-provoking, and truly inspiring. I will absolutely be continuing this conversation with the students in the Mandeville Fellowship when we're back in our virtual classroom next week. I enjoyed being a student myself again for those 30 minutes of our conversation. We'll now begin the Yizkor memorial portion of our program. Led by clergy from San Francisco congregations, as a community, we say together, Nizkor, we shall remember. Not only do we remember those who were killed in the Holocaust, but also the survivors we lost this year. I think fondly of the passing of Louis de Groot, one of the founders and first presidents of the Holocaust Center, and the many other survivors we lost this past year and the years before. You will never be forgotten. We will continue to share your stories. If you have a candle at home, please prepare it for this part of the program.
איש יש שם. לכל איש יש שם שנתן לו אלוהים ונתנו לו אביו ואמו. לכל איש יש שם שנתנו לו כמותו באופן חיוכו ונתן לו הארג. לכל איש יש שם שנתנו לו הערים ונתנו לו כתליו. לכל איש יש שם שנתנו לו המזלות ונתנו לו שכניו. לכל איש יש שם שנתנו לו חטאיו ונתנה לו כמיהתו. לכל איש יש שם שנתנו לו שונאיו ונתנה לו אהבתו. לכל איש יש שם שנתנו לו חגיו ונתנה לו מלאכתו. לכל איש יש שם שנתנו לו עונות השנה ונתן לו עברונו. לכל איש יש שם שנתן לו הים ונתן לו מותו. Everyone has a name by Zelda. Everyone has a name given to him by God and given to him by his parents. Everyone has a name given to him by his stature and the way he smiles and given to him by his clothing. Everyone has a name given to him by the mountains and given to him by his walls. Everyone has a name given to him by the stars and given to him by his neighbors. Everyone has a name given to him by his sins and given to him by his longing. Everyone has a name given to him by his enemies and given to him by his love. Everyone has a name given to him by his feasts and given to him by his work. Everyone has a name given to him by the seasons and given to him by his blindness. Everyone has a name given to him by the sea and given to him by his death.
Never say that you have reached the very end, when leaden skies a bitter future may portend. For sure the hour for which we yearned will yet arrive, and our marching steps will thunder, we survive. Sag nicht keinmal, als du gehst den letzten Weg, Gott schimmeln bleiene, verstellen bleue Tag. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebändte Schau, Sveta Polk, ton unser Traut mit seinen Dor. Kommen wird noch unser ausgebändte Schau, Sveta Polk, ton unser Traut mir seinen Dor. Von grünen Palmenland bis weißen Land von Schnee. Wir kommen an mit unser Pein, mit unser Weh. Und wo gefallen sie, der Spritz von unser Blut. Sprochten wird an unser Gwure, unser Mord. Und wo gefallen sie, der Spritz von unser Blut. Sprotzen wird dort unser Gwure, unser Mord. Yay, 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 Es wird die Morgensonne begilden unserem Teint, und der Nächten wird verschwinden mit dem Feind. Nur euch versammeln wird die Sonne in dem Kajor, wie ein Parol soll gehen das Lied von Dor zu Dor. Nur euch versammeln wird die Sonne in dem Kajor, wie ein Parol soll gehen das Lied von Dor zu Dor. Sag nicht keinmal, als du gehst den letzten Weg. Gott schimmeln bleiene, verstellen bleue Tag. Kommen wird noch unser Haus gebämte Schau. Svetterpolk tun unser Trott, mir seinen da. Kommen wird noch unser Haus gebämte Schau. Svetterpolk tun unser Trott, mir seinen da.
First they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me.
Thank you, Michael. The reading you shared with us today highlights that the Holocaust is not only a Jewish story to remember, nor only a Jewish story to tell. The events of this horrific genocide are ones that humanity must continue to teach, research, and remember. Each day when we teach the lessons of the Holocaust and patterns of genocide, we strive to give a name to the victims. Who were they? What were their contributions to society? And what was the wisdom that they shared with us? Many descendants share a name with a loved one who died, a beautiful Jewish tradition that I myself have used with my two daughters, honoring my grandmothers, Doris and Jenny, two strong women that have shaped who I am today. It is our tradition that we light 6 candles on Yom HaShoah to represent the 6 million Jews that were killed in the Holocaust. I now introduce members of our community who invite us into their homes and synagogues to light a memorial candle. If you wish, please prepare your own Yizkor candle at home.
We're honored to be with you tonight. I'm Rabbi Jonathan Singer of Congregation Emmanuel.
And I'm Rabbi Beth Singer. Among 6 million Jewish souls, we take this moment to remember 1.5 million Jewish children who perished in the Shoah. During bar and bat mitzvah ceremonies at Congregation Emmanuel, our students remember a unique boy or girl whose life was cut short in the Holocaust and was therefore denied the rite of passage of a bar or bat mitzvah.
Tonight, we remember Israel Angelchik. Israel Angelchik was born in Touretz, Belarus in 1933. He perished during the Shoah in Touretz in 1941 at the age of 8. Zichrono Livracha, may his memory be for a blessing.
Sasha was named after his great Oma Ursula, in addition to many other wonderful family members. And Zev, who are you named after?
I was named after my great-grandpa Borny.
Today we light the candle for JFCS and for Yom HaShoah to remember 3 people in our family who really set the precedent for the rest of us. We remember my Opa, Hans Gruenbaum, John Green, who not only escaped from Germany after the Nuremberg laws were implemented, but went back and fought for the American army. We remember my grandfather, Bernard Szabo, of blessed memory, who was liberated by the Russian army from Nazi labor camps while the rest of his family perished. And we remember my Oma, Ursula Green, who escaped on the Kinder transport. For all of these people, we light this candle.
Yeah. Yummy.
and remember all those who were saved and all those who were lost.
My name is Serene Barash. This is my husband, Herbert Barash, a survivor of the Holocaust.
We dedicate this candle to the 1,500,000 children that were killed during the Holocaust.
We light this candle in memory of our dads, Bill Lowenberg, Susan's dad,
and Seymour Neustadt, Joyce's dad, and for both of our families that were murdered in the Holocaust.
I'm Anita Magnus Frank. I'm a Holocaust survivor from the Netherlands, and I'm so grateful to be here with my grandsons, Aiden and Nathaniel, to commemorate the Holocaust.
I light this candle in the memory of the 1.5 million Jewish children who perished in the Holocaust.
I light this candle in memory of the roughly 4.5 million other Jews who perished in the Holocaust.
And I will light this candle in memory of my beloved aunt, Tante Paula Herzfeld, my mother's only sister, and her daughter, Ruth, who perished in Auschwitz in 1942, to my beloved little cousin, Leni Stern, who perished in Sobibor in 1943, and my father's brothers and sisters and their families who perished in either Sobibor and Auschwitz. May their memory live forever, and may this never happen again.
I'm Leon Reininger.
I'm Eva Reininger.
We are lighting this candle in memory of our 6 million. Nothing in us shall ever allow us to forget the Holocaust. I lost 21 members of my family, including my favorite Uncle Shia, and his name lives on in our family.
שוכן במרומים, המצאי מנוחה נחולם, תחת כנפי השכינה, במעלות קדושים ותארים, כזוהרקי המזהירים. את נשמות רבבות אלפי ישראל, הנשים, נשים וטף, הקדושים והטהורים, שהומתו ושנהרגו ושנשחטו ושנשרפו ושנדברו ושנחנקו על קדושת השם. בעבור שאנו מתפללים בהזכרת נשמותיהם בגן עדן תמנוחתם. לכם מלחמים יסתירם בסתר כנפיו לעולמים, ויצרור מצרכים את נשמותיהם, אדוני הוא נחלתם, וינוחו בשלום משכבותיהם, ונאמר אמן.
El Malay Rachamim, exalted, compassionate God, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure, whose radiance is like the heavens to the souls of all the men, women, and children of the house of Israel, who were murdered in Sachsenhausen, slaughtered in Mauthausen, burned to ashes in Auschwitz, and strangled in all of the concentration camps throughout Europe during the Shoah. May they rest in paradise. Master of mercy, may they find eternal shelter beneath your sheltering wings. May their souls be bound up in the bond of life. Adonai is their portion. May they rest in peace. And let us say, Amen.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ועלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ועל כל יושבי תבל ואמרו אמן.
A special thank you to the San Francisco clergy who each created a sacred virtual space for our community to commemorate Yom HaShoah. Thank you to our partners and to all the JFCS staff involved in the creation of this very special and meaningful Yom HaShoah commemoration. I have many roles at the JFCS Holocaust Center, but it is my time in the classroom that is by far the one I value most. I'm an educator at heart, and I want to thank my greatest teachers, the survivors. Please join us over the next 2 days while we commemorate Yom HaShoah through education. We begin tomorrow's Day of Learning with testimony from George Elbaum, who was a child in the Warsaw Ghetto. Following George's testimony will be a series of workshops with scholars and artists. We conclude tonight's program with Hatikva, and as we began our commemoration, with a beautiful Yiddish piece of music. Thank you for joining us, and have a good night.
כל עוד בלבב פנימה, נפש יהודי הומייה, ולפאתי מזרח קדימה, עין לציון צופיה. עוד לא עדה תקוותנו, התקווה בת שנות 2000, להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון וירושלים. להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון וירושלים.
Ungesäuert auf den Herzen macht man alle Chaim. Auf der Rumet los nicht ruhen, singen mir ein Lied. Ist nicht da kein bisschen Bromfen, lo mir trinken Maim. Maim Chaim ist doch Chaim, was darf noch der Jid? soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, Mashiach kommt schon bald, oi, soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, Mashiach kommt schon bald. Sisador von Kula Chayev, seid nicht kein Aronim, und von sündigen Mashiach Gicher kommen wird. Ach, du Tatelein Himmel, es bin Bnei Rachmonim, se Mashiach soll nicht kommen, a bissele zu spät. Soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, Mashiach komm schon bald, oi, soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, Mashiach komm schon bald. Es tanzen Bämer in die Wälder, Sterne auf den Himmel, Reb Yisroel, der Mechuden, dreht sich in der Miet. Es wird sich aufwecken, Mashiach, von sein tiefen Dremel, wenn wird der Herrn unser viele dicke Lied. Soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, Mashiach kommt schon bald, oi, soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, Mashiach kommt schon bald, oi, soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, Mashiach kommt schon bald, oi, soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, soll schon kommen die Geule, Mashiach kommt schon bald.